home on a kind of a quasi-overnight pass-through. Glad to be out of the truck, at least for a little while. Going back out on the road tomorrow, but I wanted to touch base, as it were, and share some thoughts on what I think is coming down the pipeline. And yes, I do believe a trucking apocalypse is on the horizon, and I do believe that the warning signs, the harbingers, they are here, they are present, they are visible. Let me tell you what I'm talking about here. Now, bear this in mind. I am not an industry expert. I am not an industry wizard. I am not a genius. I also do not have insider connections to the movers and the shakers. I have no idea truly what is coming. All I can say is this is what I'm seeing, this is what I'm hearing, this is what I think is going to be the case. However, does not mean that I am correct, and you should take everything that I say with a grain of salt. Bear that very firmly in mind, because I believe you will be doing yourself a greater service than if you believe me whole hog, as it were. So what am I talking about? One thing that I've been looking at off and on for the last 6 or so months has been trading out of my Kenworth T680 into a Freightliner Cascadia 126, the newer, sleeker, sexier body style of the Freightliner. Number one, because I want to get into a younger truck mileage-wise. Number two, I want to get into a newer truck model year-wise. And number three, I want a truck that is far easier to service, because Freightliners can be serviced, as can Western Stars, because they're made by Freightliner essentially, at any TA or Petro in the nation that is listed as an authorized service point for those trucks. That is a colossal advantage that Freightliner drivers and operators have, because they have a huge network of shops that Kenworth drivers and PACCAR drivers just do not have access to. I mean, the mom and pop shops are great, don't get me wrong. I've had some good work done for myself at mom and pop shops, great people. But all too often, the issues that I have had have required me to go to a Kenworth dealership to get the work done. And I have had to wait. I've lost a lot of time waiting for my truck at Kenworth shops. And quite frankly, I want to get away from that for the reasons I'm about to talk about. But first, I was looking at used truck prices the other night, and then again this morning after I got unloaded, and truck prices for used Freightliner tractors have come down by an order of anywhere from $15,000 to $30,000 for trucks that are under 500,000 miles. Now, going into the end of 2022, most Freightliner trucks that were in good condition, most Cascadia 126s specifically, 2018, 19 and newer, those trucks used for under 500,000 miles were starting at $90,000 plus. Now you can find them for $75,000. Now you can get them for under $70,000. They're more in line with quote-unquote normal truck prices from when I first started shopping for my Kenworth back in 2020. Because my Kenworth, I got that in December of 2020 with a lot sticker price of $66,500, which by comparison to prices in 2022, that was a complete steal for a truck with under 400,000 miles at that time. Because if you were trying to get into the owner-operator game and buy your own truck, you were looking at $100,000 or more for a truck with under 400,000 miles on it on a lot. And that's still true, because of I saw a couple of Freightliner listings. One was for 2020, one was for 2021, and both of those trucks were under 400,000. I think one was under 350, and each of them was stickered for $105,000 plus. So the prices are still insane. But if you're willing to go for a truck that's over 400,000 but under 500,000, you'll be shopping in the under $80,000 range, depending on your location and a bunch of other factors. Issues with the truck, condition of the body, whether or not it has an APU, engine size and displacement, horsepower, all that stuff, transmission choice, all those factors will play into it as well. Now, why do I consider that to be one of the signs of the trucking apocalypse? Well, that's telling me two things. Number one, that used inventory is on the incline. It is increasing, meaning that either the major mega carriers who turn over their fleets a lot faster are getting their fleet management back on track because of supply chains coming back on stream, and new trucks coming out and fulfilling orders to the big carriers like J.B. Hunt, Schneider, Werner, UPS, FedEx, all the megas. They're getting their orders filled, so they're able to start letting go of their older models, their higher mileage trucks. So there's more inventory to shop with. It's not a seller's market, it's becoming a buyer's market again. That also tells me that either fewer people are able, like the smaller fleets or the smaller carriers or the individual owner-operators, do not have the financial liquidity to go out and trade for or buy these used trucks because interest rates are still very high. When I bought my trailer last year, I got quoted a 13% interest rate because my LLC had only been active, for, what was it? I think it was under 2 years at that point, or just over a year and a half. So, I kind of made the mistake of not using my personal credit history to buy my trailer, and I bought it through my LLC. And because my LLC had at that point essentially no credit history, I got hit with a higher interest rate. If I go to trade my Kenworth, I'll probably look at using my personal credit history rather than my business credit history to get a better deal on it, depending on when or if or how that happens. So that's something for me to think about. But still in all, there's a real, I think that the lower truck prices for used inventory is a sign of things to come, because even if the national version of ABC doesn't go through, which is the national copycat of California's AB5 that all of us truckers are just so excited about, even if that does not go through, the combination of low freight rates and fuel costs that are still trending, above where they should be, and also couple that with very poor energy policy on the part of the U.S. federal government. Fuel costs, I've been hearing, my dad and I were just talking about this as a matter of fact, fuel costs, some folks are projecting that as potentially a worst case, they could be significantly worse than they were in 2020, and 2021, 2022, when they were $5 and $6 a gallon for diesel, and well over $7 a gallon for diesel in California. So, I paid $3.64 a gallon in Nebraska just the other day, which was amazing. But I do not want to go back to a time where $4.84 is considered a deal, or $5.24 is considered a deal. I want to stay in the sub $4 range, thank you very much. I also want freight rates to stay comfortably above $2 a mile, because in that margin of sub $4 diesel and $2 plus mileage freight rates, there is a place in those margins where most solo owner operators can exist. They can take care of themselves, pay their bills, meet their financial obligations, and remain in business. It won't be a comfortable margin, but it is a survivable margin until things turn around. However, I do expect used truck prices to continue to trend downward, because there is a strong likelihood that the national ABC copycat does go through, and that forces a lot of owner-operators, lease purchase operators, and lease agreement operators either to revert to company drivers and sell their trucks to the carriers they drive for, or sell those trucks outright or let the lease term expire, or however it works out, let that truck be reclaimed by the lessor, who will then have to put that truck on a lot to sell it to recoup some of their investment, as it were, so they don't have that inventory just sitting idle doing nothing, which creates opportunities for drivers like myself who own equipment without having anything more than bank loans for someone else to have any kind of lien upon the equipment. So it's a bank that has liens on my truck and trailer, not a lessor. I'm not leasing. And yeah, there are places where you can get a good comfortable driver favorable lease agreement, but that is not the way I chose to do business. I wanted to own, I wanted ultimate flexibility, and that's the way I went. And, you know, on that same track, I'm also in the process, as you know, if you've been watching my videos the last little while here, that I'm very close to becoming an independent motor carrier. Like, I have my DOT number, I have my MC number. What I still need to do yet is, you know, get my insurance squared away, choose an ELD provider, and I've basically chosen a fuel card, but I will talk about that in a later video after I've actually acquired that fuel card, and, you know, I can give you my thoughts about that in a more practical fashion. But suffice it to say, the fuel card I'm expecting to go with is going to yield me very solid discounts at major truck stops, which is going to be critical for my business, especially if freight rates remain depressed and fuel costs begin to trend upward. Like, I'm going to need those every penny off a gallon I can get to be able to ensure that I have a comfortable margin where I can operate. You know, I need to have a good insurance rate so that I'm, you know, reducing my insurance costs to such a degree where I can then, again, more comfortably operate, because I can be a little more flexible with loads I choose to either let go past me, offers I choose to reject because they're too low on the rate, or I have the flexibility to operate perhaps in more volatile or shaky freight markets where the rates may not be quite as good, but the rate going in is nice, while the rate coming out maybe not so much. So it's going to be all about finding that balance between the good rates, the bad rates, and whatever's in between. And I think there's going to be a lot of people who are going to get priced out of the market this year due to the affordability issues between the payment on their equipment, if they decided to get into the game when used trucks were massively overpriced. You know, that equipment payment might be more than they can sustain with lower rates and fuel costs that just will not go down. So that's going to create, you know, some volatility in the market. A lot of people, unfortunately, I expect a lot of owner-operators, whether they are lease agreement operators or lease purchase operators or even individual owner-operators, to end up going out of business at some point this year. And thus, the available trucks will begin to decrease, while the rates will have to then at some point increase in order to keep things moving, because at some point the supply chain issues are going to be ironed out, and there will be enough economic turnaround, depending on how things shake out, where there's going to be demand going up and inventories will get to decline, and there will be a need for more freight to move, and thus rates will come up a little bit. At least that's what I'm hoping. I know a lot of other owner-operators are hoping the same thing, because they're going to, you know, it's going to be a tough year for a lot of us, myself included. I mean, I am not expecting this to be an easy year by any stretch. I'm expecting this to be a very difficult year across the board, which is why I'm pretty much making it a point to go solo, because I want to put myself completely in control of how I do my business, and I also want to be able to negotiate directly. I want to be able to develop customers. I want to be able to actually benefit from fuel discounts directly, and I want to get into a truck that's more serviceably flexible in terms of where I can get it repaired, serviced, you know, issues dealt with, things of that nature, which is why I want to get into a Freightliner. I mean, Kenworth makes a fine truck, no question about that. And my T680 and I have had some wonderful adventures, but every now and again that truck is extremely difficult to service, and that is a huge problem, because I have lost, in the last 4 months, I have lost 12 working days to maintenance and mechanical issues. And that's a problem. That's 12 days I could have made a lot of money. That would have made the end of my 2022 year very nice, and it would have made my February a little bit better. But I lost a week in February, and I lost a week in December, and they were both very poorly timed. But that's just the nature of the beast. That kind of thing is going to happen. It is what it is. It's just part of the business. And I got through those times, which is good. I'm glad about that, and it tells me that I believe I have what it takes to survive the coming uncertainty and upheaval in the market. But I'm still going to have to work just as hard as everybody else to make sure that I'm keeping my bills paid, my truck maintained, and all of those little factors just taken care of, so that by this time next year I'm still making YouTube videos as an owner-operator, not talking about how I failed, and setting myself up as a warning to other prospective owner-operators, like, this is what I did, this is where I went wrong, so on and so forth. I want to be able to have a success story at the end of this year, going into next year. But it's going to require a lot of hard work, a lot of careful thought, and a lot of opportunistic capitalization on opportunities as they come my way. Because it's going to be a tough year. I mean, there's no question about it. There's so much economic uncertainty for a lot of us out there, and with brokers that are deliberately posting very cheap rates for freight that used to pay significantly better, it's going to be a fight, and a lot of us are going to have to dig in and say, look, this garbage freight rate you're giving me is not good enough. You want this freight moved, I'll move it, but you're going to be paying me significantly more than what you're offering. I don't care if that's more than what you have in the load or what you claim to have in the load. You want this moved, this is the rate. You don't like it? Okay, I'm letting it go. Someone else can haul it. And we're all going to have to do that. We're all going to have to dig our heels in and say to the brokers, like, look, what you're offering is not good enough. You want this moved, you need to increase the rate. The trouble is that there's too many of us out there willing to operate for next to nothing in terms of profit, and our margins are basically zero. I mean, we've all done it, taking a cheap load just to get something moving, to get from one place to another without having to work for free. I mean, we've all done it. We've all had to do it at some point just to get moving, just to keep money flowing in. I mean, the load that got me home, actually, that was a very, very poorly paying load, but it was very light. So my fuel economy was very good, especially in the mountains coming from the west. That was huge. That helped me out a lot and made the run essentially, it was still a profitable run when everything was said and done, but it wasn't nearly as profitable as it should have been. So that's on me in a lot of ways. So, but yeah, we're gonna have to dig in and really make that message felt and heard, and brokers have to understand, like, look, this is what it is. If you're not going to pay this rate, we're not going to book with you. And I see a lot of loads where it's the same load, essentially at the same weight, the same general rate, the same point of origin, same destination, and there's 3 different brokers offering. It's okay, who's double brokering? Who's doing, is this shipper trying to get 3 different brokers to fight over the same load? I have no idea. But the freight is out there. Things will change for the better, but we're going to have to make sure that we're negotiating harder, because those of us who survive are going to be the ones who are willing to say, no, we're not going to move your freight at this rate. Either you increase it, or you have to hope that somebody else willing to haul that load at that rate comes along, because that's not me. People can blame the big brokers for it all they want. I mean, it's all the brokers are doing something. It's just a question of how awful is it, and whether or not you're willing to accept, a bad rate to keep working. I mean, there's no question about it. There is generally a depression in the freight market, essentially. But the DAT load board shows one thing, what is reality. And right now there's legislation that's, if you keep an eye on the Mother Trucker YouTube channel, he's talking about things that are happening that could make transparency more of a legal requirement, that could really give us better negotiating room at the bargaining table and really bring some true honesty to the industry, which is probably long overdue. But until that actually happens in such a way where it's nationally required, it's still going to be a fight. And the biggest thing that we as owner-operators can do is make sure that we're negotiating harder and are willing to walk away from a bad deal. And it's gonna cause some pain, no question about it. Like, I've let loads go in the past as well. It's just, yeah. But I'm rambling more than talking anything sensible, so let it go from there. YouTube, thank you so much for watching. Hope you made it through all of my meandering diatribe. I apologize for no good scenery as you watch me, drive my sports car instead of watching out my windshield. Yeah, I just spent a lot of time talking about doom and gloom and uncertainty and, woe and, terribleness, people going out of business and so forth. But I do believe wholeheartedly that at the end of all of this mess, both in the short term and the long term, there is going to be benefit and blessing and reward and profit and prosperity for a lot of us out there who are doing what needs to be done to keep America's freight moving, keep North America's freight moving as well. And I do believe that a lot of us who are maybe feeling the pinch a little bit right now are going to be okay in the long run. So with that being said, YouTube, I will bid you a good evening for the time being, and I will see you all at some point down the road.